Recorded Books presents Crisis and Chaos. Lessons from the Front Lines of the War Against COVID-19 by Jerome M. Adams, M.D., MPH, with Nancy Pesky. Narrated by Leon Nixon. To my wife Lacey and my kids Caden, Eli, and Millie, thank you for your love and support. To all who lost their lives or health to COVID-19, and to all who did their best to protect others during this once-in-a-century pandemic. This book was written in the hopes that your suffering can help prevent the future suffering of others. Preface. Mention Washington, D.C., and many people think of out-of-touch insiders focused only on building their power and advancing their own agendas. Or they think of a place where their representatives fight for them against those other people who are determined to destroy America. Maybe some think of D.C. as a place where good people do their best to make America live up to its ideals. Growing up in rural southern Maryland, I gave little thought to Washington, D.C. until my first time there when I was 8 years old. Most kids who grew up in the DMV, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, went to the nation's capital on field trips to drive past the White House and see the monuments or to visit the Air and Space Museum. My first visit was for a very different reason. I went there because I was dying. Literally. I was in status asthmaticus, a state where I couldn't breathe. My local hospital, a rural critical access hospital 45 minutes from my house, couldn't reverse the severe asthma attack I was having. So a helicopter airlifted me to the Children's Hospital 2 hours away. Other than confusion, fear, and wondering if I was ever going to see my parents or my dog, Bruno, again, I don't remember much about that day. The idea of a first helicopter ride would normally be exciting for any child, but all I could focus on was not dying, channeling all the energy in my scrawny 8-year-old body into taking each successive breath. Despite experiencing what many would describe as a traumatic experience, I realize now how lucky I was. Far too many children don't make it to adulthood after such an episode, particularly if they are poor, black, or living in a rural area. All three describe me as a kid. Black boys die from asthma at 3 times the rate of white children. Too many live in environments that lead to or worsen their asthma. Too many have the misfortune of growing up in a place that lacks resources, so they don't have access to the high-quality medical care my own children now enjoy. Sometimes the lack of access isn't because there are no nearby specialist doctors and hospitals. Sometimes it's due to lack of insurance coverage or an inability to pay for medical supplies and treatments. Often families have overlapping problems, which are further exacerbated by bias and structural racism in healthcare, something you'll learn more about in this book. Recently, we've learned that both pulse oximeters, monitors that measure the oxygen level in your blood, and medications for asthma can work differently in white people than in those who are darker skinned. This potentially life-saving information would have been discovered earlier if people of color had been included in research studies at a level commensurate with the disease burden they bear. I'm left wondering if, at least part of the problem with controlling my asthma as a child was that too often I was identified as being in distress too late and given treatments that were designed for someone else. You now understand I'm not being hyperbolic when I say I nearly died because of a lack of representation in clinical research. Hence, it's no coincidence that I now chair the board of an organization devoted to increasing diversity in clinical trials. Racial disparities became painfully obvious during COVID-19, which hit communities of color harder than white communities. You'll learn about the many reasons for that later. The health status and opportunities of too many Americans have far more to do with zip codes, where you and the people like you live, learn, play, pray, and exist, than genetic codes. Under-resourced communities and individuals, Hispanics, Blacks, American Indians, Alaska Natives, those in rural populations, differently abled people, and members of the LGBTQ plus community, to name but a few, are socially predisposed to have poorer health in America for a variety of reasons. When I was appointed U.S. Surgeon General in 2017 and unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate, I was determined to focus on public health, protecting and promoting the health and safety of families and communities across America. I was just as determined to promote health equity, ensuring everyone had the opportunity to be their healthiest self. I was eager to bring this up in any media exchange or public speaking I would do. The topic was and is personal to me. I know far too many people, family and friends, who suffer from high blood pressure, diabetes or prediabetes, and asthma. I can easily empathize with people who have the conditions I mentioned because I have all three myself and am on 8 different medications to treat them. Too often, politics complicated an already extremely difficult situation of dealing with an unprecedented, once-in-a-century pandemic. This undoubtedly made my work as the nation's doctor much harder. We need to clear away the BS and the bias that's dividing, confusing, and preventing us from achieving the health outcomes we want and are failing to achieve. Reflecting on how that happened, how that affected you and the people you care about, and what lessons can be learned, will help us turn this ship around so that we no longer have to let politics stand in the way of our health. Regardless of who is at the helm, who is president, or which political party is in power, this ship, the wealthiest and most scientifically advanced on the planet, continually steers itself towards infectious disease icebergs. Why do we keep repeating the same mistakes, whether it's Bush in H1N1, Obama and Ebola, Trump and Biden with COVID-19, or Biden and Mpox? Just as importantly, why can't we acknowledge that rearranging the deck chairs, or changing the captain, on the Titanic does nothing if we continually pursue the exact same course? Despite the World Health Organization, WHO, saying COVID-19 no longer qualifies as a global emergency, and the Biden administration ending U.S. pandemic emergency declarations, many countries and communities have seen periodic surges in COVID-19.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.